Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Monday, the 21st of June. Today we celebrate the National Day, Indigenous Day of Prayer. And so this is a beautiful day. This is an opportunity for us as Canadians, as inhabitants of Turtle Island, to widen our understanding and to reach out in solidarity to our brothers and sisters, our siblings in the Indigenous community. It is also an opportunity for us to look at and recognize and be honest about our own way of looking at the world and how we might have in the past not maybe been as inclusive as we could be. Today is a big day for me because, of course, as some of you know, one of my sisters is adopted and she is Indigenous, and this has always made a day for me to think about her and to think about the gift that her first mother gave to us when she chose us to raise my sister, to adopt her. But this is also a day when I have to begin, especially this year, begin thinking about, as much as we were blessed to have my sister in our lives, what parts of her life did she not get to have because she was raised outside of her culture. I'm not going to suggest that I would like to go back and change it because I love her. She is fully my sister, and I have 2 nephews and a niece from her, and my life is such a beautiful place because she's in it. But because she is in it, maybe that makes me a little bit more attuned to watching things happening. And the past few weeks, as you know, we've had a really difficult time in our country, as we have witnessed the heartbreak of 215 young children's unmarked graves be found. 215 children who should have gone on to become parents and grandparents themselves, to pass on the stories that are told on Father's Day and Mother's Day and Grandparents' Day. Stories that never got finished because their lives were lost or taken way too soon. This is also a time when we as Christians and members of churches and simply as colonizers or settlers of people of non-Indigenous background who are members of Canadian society do have to acknowledge that our ancestors participated, whether by action or inaction, in something that was akin to genocide. We know that from the doctrine of discovery and other government papers and documents that there was a decision made to eradicate the Indian problem, to get rid of the history, the culture, the very way of being of the Indigenous peoples who were here inhabiting this land that they referred to as Turtle Island before the French and the British came here and claimed it as their own, not essentially, but in fact nullifying and not acknowledging the presence of the humanity of the Indigenous peoples. That is what the doctrine of discovery was all about. And on this day, in particular, you are asked as citizens of this place, this country, this nation, to start doing your homework. Go online and check out the doctrine of discovery. Check out the Anglican Church of Canada website and under the resources, and watch the movie, I believe it's called Stolen Lands, Strong Hearts, or Strong Hearts, Stolen Lands, about the doctrine of discovery and what it has meant for Indigenous peoples in this land. And it helps to explain why it is so important that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, the 94 calls to action, they must be acknowledged. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which just passed, Bill C-615, just passed early last week, why that needs to be implemented immediately. If you think about it, and I'm assuming that you're probably either a white person, and if you're not, then, or a non-Indigenous person. If you are Indigenous, then I encourage you to watch this and tell me if I'm wrong or give me some comments and feedback. But if you're a non-Indigenous person watching this, imagine yourself and think of your own child, your own niece or your own sister, or even yourself, walking down a street feeling like you've got the world by the tail, or maybe you don't, and that's why you're walking down the street and being kidnapped. and disappearing. It happens to non-Indigenous people way too often. Children are kidnapped, they disappear, and we have Amber Alerts, and we have it all over the news. If anybody's seen this little girl wearing a purple sweater, she's 5 years old and has pigtails or whatever, it's all over the news. But how often do we hear about the 5-year-old Indigenous girl who disappears from a reserve, or from a First Nation, or from the streets of Winnipeg, Toronto, London? I don't understand it myself, but the way that we have worked from this doctrine of discovery on has sort of ingrained in our society an us and them. That if it's us, meaning white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, or, Eurocentric peoples, if it's us, then somehow all stops are pulled and we do our best to make sure that child is found, or to get justice for that child or that family. But when it's a missing Indigenous person, or it's an Indigenous person who is being arrested for stealing a car or mugging someone, there's a whole set of different standards, and they are so much lower. The real tragedy of this is that in systemic racism, which this stems from, the whole doctrine of discovery set it up, it is so much a part of who we are that we can't even see it. For those of you who may be like me, have had times in your life that because of your gender, your orientation, your size, your age, your skin color, you've had moments when you've realized that you've hit a glass ceiling at work, or people are not taking you seriously. That has happened to me as a female priest. Not nearly as much today as when I started 22 years ago, but there have been many times when comments have been made or opportunities were given to other people because, well, I don't know for sure, but I think because I was a woman. And that's the thing about systemic isms. We can't put our finger on exactly what it was. I can't prove that that person got that job or got that pay raise when I didn't, when we were doing the same job, because they were a man, because the system is set up that can't be proven. I am living the results of that choice to pay this person X. Although we had the same job, I don't get the pay raise, but he does. But how do you challenge that when the system is set up in such a way that it's allowable but not challengeable? That is a small, tiny little example of what it must be to be an Indigenous person, to be an Indigenous woman or girl. When you are walking down the street and you realize that the police cruiser has slowed down and is following you, and you've done nothing wrong, and across the street there's a couple of white guys doing the same thing, but the police aren't watching them, they're watching you. Is it because the police are inherently racist? Because they automatically think you've done something wrong? Or could it be that because in their training, in their understanding of everything they've lived through in their 20, 30, 40 years of life, the system has, without really them noticing it, set it up that they are to look twice at you but not at the white guys? It doesn't make it right. It makes it really wrong, because unlike obvious and tangible racism, which can be challenged on the spot, systemic racism is something that is so woven into what we do and how we think, and our laws and our ways of being, the ways we hire people, that we cannot obviously shine a spotlight on it and say, there you go, that's racism. We have to dig deep. We have to do the work of looking at everything we're thinking and saying and doing and recognize, is that racism? And if it is, what am I willing to do to stop it? Because once we acknowledge it, it's not enough to say, yeah, that's racism. Then we have to take the step to say, how do we stop that? So today, as we take time to pray for our Indigenous brothers and sisters and siblings, as we recognize more and more the pain of having culture lost, of having children stolen, having lives stolen, having children sisters, mothers disappeared, and seeming like no one cares to look for them. Today, of all days, we need to be paying closer attention. So may today not just be the day that you begin to pay attention, may it be the first day that you begin to pay attention. That from now on, what you do and who you are, and what you say, what you think, what you read, you pay attention for systemic racism. Pay attention to the ways in which what you are doing, without you trying to be a bad person, the way that we just simply exist might be pushing down the way others exist. Because together, those who are being oppressed and those of us who realize we are on the privileged side, when we stand up to say enough is enough, when we join the idle no more, then things can change. Our Indigenous siblings in creation can change their world. But how much better would it be if we changed our whole world by standing with them in solidarity, praying with them, walking with them, changing things with them? I think that's what we're called to do today and every day. So today, have a good National Day, Indigenous Day of Prayer. Say prayers and then do things. Take action to stand in solidarity with those who are different than we are, but are still absolutely as loved and beloved of God as we are. God bless you all. Have a good day, and I'll see you again for Tuesday, Church at Home with Rachel.